Hey everybody, welcome to the Mother Figures podcast. I'm Caitlin Darkangelo, founder and co-owner of FIGR, Midwestern wife and girl mom. I'm a dual certified pregnancy and postpartum trainer, majored in exercise science from the University of Michigan, earned my master in management degree from Duke University, and have been coaching in the fitness industry for over a decade. This podcast dives into all things pregnancy and postpartum fitness, especially in how to navigate strength and intensity training in these seasons. Whether you're in it yourself, trying to get pregnant, or coaching this population, you're in the right place. I'm excited to share personal experiences, client stories, guest interviews, and evidence-based strategies to give you the guidance, insights, and clarity needed to navigate these seasons with confidence. And with that, let's get rolling. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Mother Figures podcast. Today's episode is going to be all about postpartum recovery and kind of setting yourself up for your smoothest postpartum recovery. I'm currently 8 weeks postpartum myself, and this is my second time around. And I had a pretty smooth, very smooth postpartum recovery with my first one. But this one has been like exponentially smoother. And so I've just been reflecting on potential pieces of the puzzle that has made it that much smoother. And although a lot of this is going to be coming from my personal perspective, this is also backed by research, backed by what I see clinically or in the gym as well, with my current clients and past clients. And so I just wanted to create a podcast breaking down each of the pieces that play a role in postpartum recovery in hopes that you could take any of the pieces and just stack the deck in your favor or in your client's favor. Because obviously, as we know, birth and labor and pregnancy and postpartum and everything that surrounds the motherhood sphere is all individual and sometimes unpredictable, and so many things are out of our hands. But I wanted to find or just talk about today the certain pieces that are modifiable or things that we do have control of in order to hopefully stack the deck in our favor. So that's kind of the angle that I'm coming with for this podcast. So in terms of my postpartum recovery this time around, it has been strong from literally the hospital bed. So when I had first delivered Vienna, I tried to do a pelvic floor contraction and just like deep breathing, like literally in the hospital bed. And the first time I tried, I was able to connect with my pelvic floor and core in a way that felt really strong off the bat. From a pain perspective as well, I only needed ice packs for a day versus with Amelia, I feel like I used them for like a whole week after birth. And I remember even going from the labor and delivery room to the postpartum room, sitting on the chair like the first time around, like the wheelchair that they wheel you around in. I remember the first time around, it was like kind of painful to sit down on like a hard-ish surface. And I was not sore or in pain at all in the hospital room. And then getting home, like sitting on a normal dining room chair, I remember with Amelia, it was like I had to sit on a bobby pillow for like a few days because it was just sore. But I was not sore at all. There was like no need for pain medication in the hospital. Like they kept asking if I needed Tylenol and like what my pain level was. And I was like, I'm kind of at a 0. Like I don't feel anything. So it just like right off the bat, it was very low pain and really strong connection off the bat. In terms of bleeding this time around too, I stopped bleeding at 2 weeks, which is super early compared to my first time around, which was like 7 to 8 weeks. And I also felt no symptoms of like incontinence or pain or pressure in the pelvic floor region. And it's just been very steady, gradual progress from there so far. So I'm now getting into weights and more impact and intensity. And that has all been progressing without dips in or like issues. And then from a like mental and emotional standpoint, I feel like I'm in a much stronger place than I was the first time around. Although it was strong the first time, like I just feel like this time things are just really, really great. So I just, as I've been reflecting on all of that in my own personal life, I wanted to, again, try to create an episode in a way that I can share with you as many benefits as I can without being like, hey, like this, if you do this, then you will for sure have this outcome. Like that's not the angle I want to come at it with you guys. I just want to emphasize that I'm like, these don't guarantee any labor or postpartum outcomes. It's more so like I'm hoping that these can have a positive impact if you apply them yourselves in your own postpartum recovery and pregnancy and all the things. So that's kind of what we're going to go into today. So the first thing that I feel has given me or set me up the best was doing more breath work and connection work during pregnancy. So with my pregnancy with Amelia, I didn't start getting into the pregnancy and postpartum field. I didn't start studying all of this until I was about 8 months postpartum. So I didn't even learn about breath work really in depth until after delivery with Amelia. So I did not do a ton of breath work during pregnancy. But I do feel that focusing so much on breath work and deep core connection and pelvic floor connection during those last few weeks of pregnancy especially, really helped keep me mentally, like mind-body connection, in control or in connection with these muscle systems that obviously get taxed and changed a lot throughout pregnancy and then have a huge role in birth and labor. Especially when it comes to down training. So really learning to relax the pelvic floor during those inhales of the breath work, that helped, I feel, in my opinion, and it has been shown as well, but it does help with smoother labor if you can down train, let the pelvic floor relax and get out of the way so that the uterus can push the baby out. If there is a wall or if the pelvic floor is super tight and tense, it kind of creates this barrier and potential longevity to the pushing stage. So the more breath work that you can do, or the more you can allow your pelvic floor to down train in those last few weeks of pregnancy, the smoother your labor can potentially go. And it also can help reduce the odds of tearing. So there's not as much force for the baby to get through. The pelvic floor is able to get out of the way. So less tearing risk also means that you have less physical injury to recover from after birth. So it can lead to a smoother postpartum recovery because there's less to recover from, because your pelvic floor got out of the way, because you were able to figure out how to do that consciously prior to labor, so that when you are in labor, your body just kind of naturally does it. Because obviously you kind of go into this like no man's land in your brain, like you don't really know what's going on, especially during that push phase of labor. But I feel like really focusing on breath work during my pregnancy allowed my body to do that appropriately during labor, which set me up for a smoother recovery because I had no tearing and just like my pelvic floor was more functional throughout pregnancy. And that also leads to the point of having a functional pelvic floor versus just a strong pelvic floor. I know a lot of people talk about having like a strong pelvic floor or training your pelvic floor for birth. And it's not about having the strongest pelvic floor. It's about being strong and also being functional and also letting it relax and release tension. So there's this full range of motion that we want. We want it to be able to contract and be strong to hold in things like, so we're not peeing our pants and stuff like that. But we also have to let it fully relax and release tension so that in terms of labor, it can get out of the way. So it's not just a strong pelvic floor, it's having a functional pelvic floor, which is what breath work is all about. My FIGR pregnancy program has breath work programmed in through the whole third trimester. And so I worked on it throughout my whole pregnancy, really, but really focused and lasered in on it from weeks 28 till I delivered at 38. So I feel like that really helped a lot. So that was number one, is breath work and pelvic floor deep core connection during pregnancy to set me up for a smoother postpartum recovery. Number two was the pregnancy workouts themselves that I think help set me up for a postpartum recovery that has been smooth. First, in terms of just the habit of exercise, I feel like this is such an underlooked component, but a body in motion stays in motion. So the fact that I never stopped exercising all the way up till literally the day that I delivered, I guess the day before, she was born on Christmas. So we had a Christmas Eve workout. That was my last workout of pregnancy. But I never stopped. And so my body and my brain wanted to get back into that because that's what I enjoy. It's what makes me feel good. And so it was just easier to get back into recovery efforts postpartum because there was no lag in movement. I was moving and exercising my whole way through pregnancy, which makes it easier to start postpartum. So that is a huge component that I think all of us can have control over, is just continuing some kind of movement. Maybe it's not intense exercise or structured exercise, but at least keeping up with your walks and your stretches, your mobility, anything you can physically, just stay in motion with it so that it can become easier from a routine and a habit perspective in those early days postpartum, which can then set you up for a smoother and more cohesive recovery postpartum. So that was number one of like pregnancy workouts, just getting in or staying in the habit of exercise. Number two, with my pregnancy workouts, I really prioritized pelvic balance this time around, and I was able to because I had way less pelvic pain. So I was more specific or tuned into this like single leg and pelvic balance component, which helps with a lot of things, but especially things like baby positioning, allowing the baby to kind of find its proper spot in your core canister. Pelvic balance can help with that. And that can help improve birth outcomes. So if your baby is better positioned, has a better chance of kind of finding the right way out versus being stuck on one side of your pelvis versus the other. So this includes things like single leg strength training, step ups, lunges, Cossacks, all the things. Doing those with different angle components and different modalities or variations. So just keeping a high variety of single leg movements on top of the strength of that. And then it also involves a lot of mobility. So mobility of the hips, full body mobility, especially in like the thoracic spine and the rib cage, to allow for everything from a top down approach to make sure everything's connected and well balanced throughout the whole body. Keeping a full range of motion, and that can help in terms of labor from a pelvic floor perspective as well, because if our body is used to getting in these full range of motion, patterns, our pelvic floor is also being pulled in different areas as we're getting into these different varieties and different ranges of motion. And so when you get into labor, you can get into more positions and different positions to allow that baby to continue moving its way down the pelvis and hopefully to improve labor outcomes that way. And it just allows your body to relax into these positions because your body is used to doing these positions. So the full range of motion, the mobility, single leg stuff, if your body is used to it during pregnancy, it can automatically and comfortably get into those positions during labor if needed, which again can improve labor outcomes. And when you have a smoother labor, that gives you less injury and less to come back from postpartum, which can smoothly return you to fitness postpartum. So that's number two, pregnancy workouts. Number three within pregnancy workouts is this time around, I did not modify nearly as much as I did the first time around. I think one, that comes down to fear that I had the first time around and the lack of knowledge that I had the first time around compared to this time. This time I was completely unafraid of anything like raising my heart rate too much or doing core work when I maybe shouldn't or going too heavy. Like those are concerns that I had the first time around before I got trained in this field. And now 4 years later, now I'm like coaching people on this stuff and I just feel super confident with it. And just having the knowledge behind movement and the lack of fear or not having that fear, I feel like I was able to tune into my own body instead of like what other outside pieces of advice are telling me. Especially 4 years ago, the whole industry was totally different, way more fear-based back then. And we have a lot more information now, which is awesome. But I think those two components allowed me to kind of stick more true to my guns. And that allowed me to not have to modify as much. And in addition, stay in tune to my body more, which helped me maintain more strength throughout my pregnancy, more connection to my body. And when you have less deconditioning from pregnancy, you're going into postpartum with a more conditioned body, more muscle strength, more muscle mass, more body connection mentally and just physically. And so I feel like that led me to a more conditioned start to my postpartum journey this time around, which is why I have been feeling really great. So those three components of part number two of this. So pregnancy workouts in terms of the habit of exercise, prioritizing pelvic balance within my workouts, and then not modifying as much or just being more in tune with my body to help me maintain as much of my conditioning and my fitness as possible, all really set me up for a smooth postpartum recovery so far of this time around. And all are things that you can do as well, just staying in routine, prioritizing pelvic balance, and just staying in tune with your workouts and not modifying because of fear or lack of knowledge, but having a smart approach to your pregnancy training. So number 3 came down to the pushing position I had during labor this time around. So I was on all fours this time, and it has shown to reduce the risk of tearing when you are not on your back. I want to say though with this, because I feel like there's been posts that I've seen especially that are like, if you push on your back, it's like the worst thing ever. But with Amelia, I preferred to push on my back, and that's how I did. And I did not tear that time around either. And it was unmedicated as well. And so I don't want to create a fear of pushing on your back, because that is what I preferred the first time around. But what I will say of having this experience pushing on all fours and delivering on all fours versus the first time around pushing and delivering on my back, I felt way more like exactness or directness in my pushes on all fours. Like I could physically like feel where she was at in my pelvic outlet. Like I could feel when she was like at my tailbone, and like feel when her head came out. It was like very specific. And it was less specific when I was on my back. It just felt like a ball of pain down there. And so I feel like from a recovery after the fact, like it has been way easier of a recovery pelvic floor wise this time around, but also pain wise and like how I was feeling during the pushing phase. I could just feel exactly what was going on all fours, which I think helped me in my effectiveness of my pushes, which potentially helped reduce tearing and trauma to the pelvic floor area, which has set me up for a better postpartum recovery. So less pain, a lot more direct, where she was at kind of thing in all fours. So pushing position is something that you might consider in terms of helping the pelvic floor recover faster or just feel better, reduce tearing risk, and all of that stuff. Obviously, this is one of those big modifiable factors that can be in your control, but it also can be out of your control depending on how labor goes. Because there's obviously, as we know, a lot of risk factors that we don't have control over. So, but still, I wanted to include this one because I do feel like that did make a difference for me personally, just the feeling during labor, and then also like how much pain or like, toothache-ness I felt afterwards, comparing both labor pushing experiences. Similarly, for number 4, again, this is a highly opinionated topic, but I did go unmedicated for both births, and I do feel like that did help me in my postpartum recovery. Again, from that perspective of like, I could feel what my body was doing, and I was allowing my body to go, to feel things naturally, or what was going to be most effective for my body in both situations. And when you are able to feel what is happening, I feel that your body does a better job of being effective with its pushing to help reduce, trauma, injury. Like your body doesn't want to hurt itself essentially. And so going unmedicated, I feel did help me have those effective pushes with less pelvic floor trauma, without the tearing. Obviously, there is no way to assure that you don't tear and all this stuff, but I do feel that is a component that has helped. Obviously, going unmedicated has its own list of, pains, but and lots of opinions surrounding this as well. And there's a lot in birth that goes unplanned, and so unmedicated might not be an option for you or a client, but that is something that I do feel has helped with a smoother postpartum recovery, just not having any of the medication like in my system as well. I know a lot of my clients have noted like having a harder recovery or just other things to recover from after having an epidural. But regardless, that's another topic. So that is number 4. Going unmedicated, I feel, has set me up for a smoother recovery. Number 5, now that was kind of like the pregnancy and labor side of things. This is all now after birth. I think the biggest difference between this pregnancy and postpartum experience versus last was I took the first like 2 weeks of rehab so seriously this time around. Like I tried to lay on the couch as much as possible, do as little as possible, and just do like peaceful activities to actually let my whole nervous system and inflammation actually slow down. I feel that that actually helped from both a physical recovery and a mental and emotional recovery, which is equally as important during this crazy time period of hormonal fluctuations and everything. And it just felt so nice to just settle down and calm down after, pregnancy and labor and all the things. The first time around, I remember just trying to stay in as much of a rhythm as I could. I thought that is what was going to make me feel most like myself. So I was, doing the laundry and cleaning and cooking and trying to do as much work as I normally did. And that I feel like never let my deep internal system slow down and calm down, which is such an acute healing phase in this early, first 2 weeks or so. And I just didn't take advantage of it that first time around. And I think it took me doing that first time around to learn what to do the second time. So hopefully this is, if you're going into your first round of postpartum recovery, hopefully my past experience can teach you before you have to make the mistake yourself like I did. But just slowing down as much as possible. So aside from my FIGR postpartum programming, which I started day 4 postpartum, and I'll talk about that in my next bullet point. I literally did as little as possible the next 23 hours and 45 minutes of the day. So some people are like, oh, like, should you be starting a program that early on? And yes, because it's 15 minutes of work and you can rest the other 23 hours and 45 minutes of the day. So within that, outside of my FIGR postpartum time, I was limiting to / not doing any housework, cooking, cleaning. I slept however much I could. Your body is just healing from a significant life event. Again, most of this is internal. Well, not most of it. A lot of it is internally, which we can't physically see. So just like letting the body chill to just reap the benefits of this crucial early window. I can't express enough how much that helped me this time around. This, again, taking those first 2 weeks seriously in terms of seriously doing nothing, I think is what helped me stop bleeding at about 2 to 3 weeks postpartum versus 8 weeks with Amelia, where I again, tried to keep up with as much as my daily routines. I remember I picked up a barbell at 2 weeks just to feel how it felt. I didn't actually do the workout with it. But again, just like being smarter about actually not doing shit is kind of what I did. So that's point number 5, is literally just do as little as possible. Take advantage of that early acute healing window. Even if you feel physically great from the outside, let that internal body just relax. And I feel like that helped calm my nervous system down, calm down inflammation, all of the hormonal things that are going on too. It just gave my body like a chance to chill. And that made a huge difference. So chill out in those first 2 weeks. Point number 6 is going into what I have been doing like from a structured perspective for my physical recovery. And that, as I've mentioned before, has been my FIGR postpartum program. So like I said, I started this on day 4 of postpartum, like day 4 coming home from the hospital. And I programmed these workouts to be started within that first week postpartum. And it gives the actual like day by day, step-by-step guidance before being cleared. And I talk about all of the clearance 6-week guidelines and all that stuff in my last podcast episode, number 24, I believe it was. But within the first 3 weeks of programming, what I programmed in is 5 minutes of breath work a day, 5 to 15-minute walks, 10 minutes of stretch and mobility sessions that are specific to what your postpartum body needs. So it is the like guidance that we need for this early recovery to be able to start slow, gradually building on from there. But those first 3 weeks of just like being super specific with breath work, light walks, and mobility were key. And just having like a structured recovery in general is just like so important versus just winging it and doing whatever. It's just like postpartum is a different realm in the early days compared to normal fitness. It's not you just get back into the gym by doing gym things. We really need to build this deep down foundation first that most of us like are never introduced to until we're in it ourselves. Like even myself, like I went to the University of Michigan for exercise science. I coached for 10 years in the fitness industry. I worked out my whole entire life. And this early acute healing phase is so different than anything I was ever taught or anything I ever did. And so having structured recovery that is postpartum specific, not just like random mobility, not just random, durations of walks, and not just random body weight movement. Like there's a lot of like structural, foundational, really deep connection based things that we should be doing in this early postpartum time period that I think most people miss because they think that it's just like, oh, you just like, slowly get back into weights. It's like there's so much that thought and intentionality that goes into this early time period. And I can't express how much a structured program helps with that. And I am totally not shy to promote my own program because I myself am exclusively following it. I've had hundreds of moms exclusively follow it, and it's just made a world of a difference physically already at this, like I'm already 8 weeks postpartum and it's just been so smooth. But it's also been so great mentally to know that like I have that time to myself and I'm putting this effort towards myself, and just the feeling that you're making progress and you don't feel stuck in like a body that doesn't feel like yours anyways. Knowing that I'm making progress to the goals that I have for myself feels fantastic. And I think that has been a huge key of my mental recovery as well, and why I'm feeling so great. And so for those reasons, like I will shout from the rooftops my postpartum program all day long because I myself can feel the benefits. I'm doing it day by day, structure by structure, exactly as anybody else would follow it. I'm not, taking any shortcuts or anything. And I just feel that it has made a world of a difference. And I've heard that from hundreds of my clients as well. So having some kind of structured postpartum recovery is one of the keys, obviously, to having your smoothest recovery going forward. So I guess so that was my six points. So one was breath work during pregnancy. Number 2 was pregnancy workouts. So from the perspective of habit of exercise, prioritizing pelvic balance and not modifying as much or staying as like conditioned as possible. Number 3 was the pushing position. Number 4 was going unmedicated. Number 5, taking those first 2 weeks of acute healing rehab very seriously. Number 6 is my FIGR postpartum program, or starting a structured progression back to exercise. And then I'm going to add like a slight number 7 from a mental perspective of why I feel like postpartum has been very smooth this time around, is because I was super, super intentional during pregnancy about taking literally everything off of my plate that I possibly could. So that comes down to work. So I pre-prepped a ton of stuff for the first 2 months postpartum. I got all of these big projects done. I essentially did everything in my work and house life that I felt was going to be a burden or take up mind space. I did that all in my pregnancy, or like a few months, whatever, before having my baby. And so I had nothing on my plate that I had to do, so that during my postpartum, early days, I only did the things that I wanted to do. So, and that honestly made it feel like a vacation, especially for somebody like myself that like, I never really let myself rest. I never let myself take breaks. I don't even remember the last time that I just like allowed myself to have the day to, just color in my book or do a puzzle or play the piano or watch a TV show. Like that's just not how I normally am. And so just letting myself off the hook by making sure that I was very proactive of setting myself up for all the things in my life that I could take off my plate, that just served me so much more mentally this time around. And then it also physically gave me the time to focus more on my physical recovery, because when we're mentally feeling better, we have more time and more just mental capacity to focus on other things like physical recovery. So the two kind of go hand in hand, and prioritizing both is so key. But I do feel like having less mental overload, helped me be more present in the newborn phase where I could really appreciate and just like spend time with my baby, but also allowed me to, have the capacity to get into my physical recovery as well. So I don't want to skip over the piece of like doing whatever you can mentally to put you in a good spot, because that will have it'll create a world of a difference for all the other things going on in your life as well. So moral of the story here. One is that so much of postpartum recovery is really setting yourself up for the best odds of a smoother recovery, which has a lot to do with your pregnancy choices. So what you do during pregnancy can help stack the deck in your favor for postpartum recovery outcomes. And that's really what postpartum or what pregnancy programming is about. It's not about just modifying your normal workouts for pregnancy or adjusting or going to class and just doing whatever you feel good about. It's like, there's a huge difference between adjusting workouts for pregnancy versus doing pregnancy specific training. And that is where my FIGR pregnancy program can come in, or any pregnancy program that you choose to follow. There's such a difference, and it can help set you up so strong for your postpartum recovery when it comes to pelvic and hip and, core related things. Just thinking about not treating pregnancy as like a time to try to maintain whatever it is you did before, like really using it as a time to help prep your body for this postpartum healing period. So that's number one. And then number two is actually allowing your body to both relax during this early time frame, but also be intentional about your structured rehabilitation with this progression. So it's not like this, 6-week myth thing of like doing nothing for forever and then doing everything all at once. And it's just about taking it slow and making sure to take steps forward at the right time. So it's not just about taking it slow, because you should take it slow, but there's also like sometimes going too slow for too long and not taking the proper steps to start moving forward, because sometimes when you go too slow, it leaves yourself feeling weak and disconnected for longer than you should be or could be feeling. So it's finding that balance of relaxation, rehab, and then also like taking those small steps forward towards strength and fitness at the same time, so you can start feeling like yourself again. So those kind of are the two pieces there. So I don't know, in a nutshell, take recovery seriously. It will make a world of a difference in your own body. And when you feel better, you can like pour into other buckets way more easily. Don't try to DIY it. It is so important to feel like yourself again. It is not selfish, because before you know it, when you feel like yourself again, then you are able to, again, pour from your own buckets and make everybody else in your life happy as well. And it's just like, postpartum recovery is not just for those who want to get back into fitness. It is for every mom, period, so that they can just feel good in their skin again. And that is so huge in a time frame when so much doesn't feel like yourself. And so it's just really important. So as always, I'm here to help you in your both pregnancy and postpartum journey. So never hesitate to reach out. My social links are in the podcast notes always. So you can always DM me on Instagram or send me an email with any questions. And with that, I will see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Mother Figures podcast. If these episodes help or resonate with you in any way, it would be so helpful to the show if you could leave a review so we can get this into more moms' hands. And if you're looking for even more guidance and direction when it comes to pregnancy and postpartum fitness, I got you covered. My Mother Figures app subscription includes my FIGR pregnancy and FIGR postpartum workout programs, in addition to our general fitness programs. You'll get the day-by-day workouts you need to help you feel strong, pain-free, and labor-ready during pregnancy, and also the recovery, strength, and progressions you'll need to get back to the activities you love, full of strength and without symptoms after baby arrives. If you're local to the Brighton, Michigan area, I also host daily women's functional fitness classes, a 6-week postpartum return to fitness course, and pregnancy and postpartum consultation sessions. For those who are providers, coaches, or practitioners in the space, I hold a live Mother Figures certification course that equips you with the knowledge, tools, and confidence to train and work with this population. For information on all of these services and programs, make sure to check out fitisgettingreal.com/moms or head to the show notes for the direct link. I'm so thankful that you tuned in today's episode, and I will catch you next time.